Tony Siracusa at Tony Bruin on Twitter, managing editor, last word on college football, a member of the Football Writers Association of America, has a vote, the Outland Trophy, and the Gursky Blitnikoff, and so much more. And he joins us. A great get for us, Tony Siracusa on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul and David Smoke. Tony, thank you very much for being a part of the show. What do you think about the trends of what Alabama just paid a young man to get $800,000 or more a year? Happy for him, but the trend of the GMs in college football.
Hey guys, I'm happy to be on the show tonight. Listen, I think this is where we're going to be going, and probably not at $800,000 for every school, but I think that this is the trend that we're going to see as a result of the settlement from the House versus NCAA lawsuit. One of the biggest things, and the settlement's complicated and it won't be finalized until next year, but one of the things it does is it brings NIL inside, because we're going to get revenue sharing from the schools to the athletes. We're going to be able to manage the NIL prospects from within. It's not a perfect system. None of this ever is. There will be tons of unfortunate, unintended consequences, but it's a step. But I think one of the things that it does ultimately, I've talked to several administrators out here on the East Coast for ACC schools, and what I'm getting is this is going to cut out the middleman in a lot of ways. There is going to be probably 10 to 15% of the schools that keep their relationships with the collectives, but use that money for the other sports, the non-football sports, maybe even the non-basketball sports. And the schools will still handle the licensing, the NIL, the contracts for the football. You're going to see the other 85 to 90% of the schools take everything inside. And so you're going to need GMs like this. Look, if you're a young person just fresh out of school and you want to get into college athletics, I'm telling you, there are going to be hundreds and hundreds of job openings for accounting and contract analysis and all these kinds of things as schools start to build up their infrastructure to do this.
Tony, when people think of a general manager, they think mostly of personnel. How much will that role vary school to school?
I think it's going to vary quite a bit. Look, the bigger schools are going to they're going to be able to afford the bigger infrastructures to do this. And there will be many more layers within the process. You're going to have smaller schools, even at the FBS level, that can hire 3-4 people. And, they'll work with personnel, but it's going to be more of an oversight job. Is everyone getting paid the money they're supposed to get paid on the revenue sharing? Do we have everybody's NIL contracts? How is all of this working? So it is going to vary dramatically, mostly by size of school.
What have you found to be most interesting in terms of the way athletic departments have changed over the last couple of years with all of the new rules? And perhaps it's the emergence of a general manager type role. But what's sort of caught your fancy in terms of everybody just adjusting to this new world of college sports?
Well, I think the term you use, adjusting, really is the key there, because in a lot of ways we're all making it up as we go along. And NIL was never, and I'm not taking collectives to task, but what I'm saying is the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit with regards to NIL was supposed to be about that direct relationship between sponsors using your name, image, and likeness and you getting paid for it. The collectives just came out of it very randomly. And so people adjusted as they could. They did what they could. You've got some schools with huge collectives. You've got others where the entire athletic department is operating off $3 million for every athlete on campus. And so I think that it is a lot of just kind of learning to adjust on the fly. I think that, there are so many unintended consequences with the lawsuits and then the resolutions, and, the NCAA tries to step in, which of course is, means instant litigation in an antitrust court within 72 hours of anything the NCAA tries to do. So it really is just a constantly fluid situation.
So with the general manager and what Morgan's going to get $825,000, there's others that are getting $300,000 or $400,000. How does this work? The head coaches are getting 5, 6, 8, 10, 11 million. It's their program. Bill Parcells, Tony, once said, if I'm going to cook the meal, I want to buy the groceries. How much influence and what will be the influence of these general managers?
I think it's really going to be more on the business end than the recruiting, the scouting, anything like that. You know, we look at a traditional GM in the NFL or any other pro sports, and I don't really see that as being the model. I really think this is going to be about managing the business end of things. Right now, you see the schools are theoretically not supposed to have direct ties to the collective. In other words, they're not supposed to be having meetings talking about how much money can you get for me for this kid or that player or whatever the case may be. Does it happen? Of course it does. Rules get broken every day. But theoretically, they're not supposed to. This changes that. This says we're going to bring the business model inside. And so I really think that that's going to have more to do with that general manager role than it will with recruiting or scouting or who the starting quarterback is.
Tony Siracusa with us. Last word on college football on 365 Sports.
Tony, I know that you cover the ACC quite a bit, and this is not their favorite offseason, I'm sure, that they've ever had. You know, if they listed it, it would not be the time they went to Disney World for sure.
Sure.
What do you see as the reasonable path forward for that league? Should it not fall apart with departures?
Sure. Let me add in that for those same reasons, it wasn't my favorite offseason either, because I spent a lot of time in what was supposed to be my downtime. A lot of it was spent in courtrooms and reading legal briefs because we covered every hearing from every one of the lawsuits in Tallahassee, in Pickens County, South Carolina, and in Charlotte, North Carolina. We were covering every one of them directly. Look, we don't know what's going to happen with these suits. All of them are at the appellate level right now, different parts of the appellate level. And they're all at that level just based on the first motions to dismiss. I mean, the very early preliminary stuff is already being appealed. So we're 2 years away from even thinking about a trial in any of these cases. Florida State, when they got denied their motion to dismiss in Charlotte, it's a different kind of court in Charlotte. It's called a complex contract court. And so basically what it means is if you want to appeal because it came from that court, you can skip the entire appellate process and go straight to the state Supreme Court, which is what Florida State has done. But that won't get heard until next spring. And they've already vowed if they lose there, they intend to go to the Supreme Court of the United States, faced with their claims that you can't sue a state entity. So we're a long way away. Jim Phillips said at ACC Media Days, he dug his heels in more than I've ever seen him on any topic. He said, we are not going to look for a settlement. We are not going to back down from these. He was pretty pissed off, thinking that Florida State and Clemson had been very disruptive to the natural flow of a conference. So I think that we're going to wait until there is a victory at some level, at some appellate level from someone. That will be the first domino that starts other things in process. Otherwise, it's all in a holding pattern.
When would the first domino potentially drop? Like, is there anything that's even in a time frame that's coming up that would be like, hey, look here in October in Raleigh, and that could be the first thing, or is it more wide open and kind of a blank canvas in that?
Couple things. One, what we have discovered through the paperwork process now having to be revealed in discovery is that while the schools were compelled to sign that extension on the grant of rights, which moved everything from 2027 through 2036, ESPN was not compelled to do the same. And that's what the schools were led to believe. ESPN has an out clause that gets them out of all of this in 2027.
Right.
But they have to file the paperwork for that by, I want to say, end of February next year. Well, we won't be through any of these legal procedures by then. So there's kind of really an open-ended question with regards to ESPN. That would be the first domino to fall. If they lock in for another few years, the ACC has a little bit of a safety blanket with that. If they don't, or if they ask for a postponement or delay on their notification, then the ACC's got reason to sweat.
So of the teams, and there are the polls, the AP coaches poll, and everyone has their rankings or whatever. Tony, who do you see that might be a little overmodulated, that has been really good, but there might be a tad overmodulated this year, and maybe a team or two that are being slept on?
You know, in terms of teams that are overmodulated, I think, and this is going to sound really strange, I don't know what to think of Alabama in the SEC this year. Look, are they a top 10 team? Yeah, probably, because it's Alabama. You know, they've always got the talent. But the SEC has got, I mean, because to me right now, Georgia is number one until proven otherwise. I like Texas this year. I really do. I think Sarkisian has put together a tremendous roster, and I like Texas's ability to compete. It's conceivable that you're looking at Alabama as a third, fourth place team, which I know that doesn't sit well with the Tide fans because, you know, they're used to always fighting to be at the top. But I think this is a much more competitive SEC this year. It's not one or two teams at the top and then everybody else. I like Oregon. I think Oregon's going to be able to compete in the Big Ten with Ohio State. They actually play each other. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I want to say it's in September. So I like Oregon a lot this year too. A couple of teams I got real question marks on are actually out here in the ACC. I voted in the preseason poll, put Florida State number one. I put Clemson number two, but I felt like putting a big question mark next to them. The defense will be good. Linebacking group is as good as they come in the country. I have no idea what to think of Cade Klubnik yet. 3 years in, I look at the guy and I'm like, I don't know. He's got some decent games. He's got some head scratchers. I don't know. I know Miami is getting a lot of preseason love. They've got, they've got three receivers on the preseason Blitnikoff list. They've got Cam Ward, their quarterback from Washington State, on every list imaginable. But I got to tell you, having spent the rest of my life on the West Coast and covering the Pac-12, I got a lot of questions about Mario Cristobal. You know, you made the reference earlier to doing the shopping and doing the cooking. I got to tell you, man, Mario Cristobal to me, he's Instacart. I'll let him do the shopping for me, but I don't want him in my kitchen. I don't want him cooking my dinner, man. He's Instacart. Until he proves he can do better, he's got the college football world is telling him, man, you got all the talent in the world right now. You better win. You better really win and compete for the conference championship. He's making the same mistakes, coaching mistakes, now that he made at Oregon years ago. So I'm not convinced. I put him third, but not really convinced about it.
Tony, if Clemson has a year like they did last year, where and I don't think the schedule lines up for them this year where they would be out of the ACC race by October 10th like they were last year, but should they be out of the ACC race before November again or early in November, do you think that inspires change in Dabo Sweeney?
You would like to think so, but I got to tell you, having talked to Dabo late last month at ACC Media Days, I feel like he dug his heels in even more. I really do. He is completely convinced that his way is what is best for Clemson. Not that his way is the right way for college football, but it's what is best for his program and for Clemson. And with Dabo Sweeney's resume at Clemson, there is no such thing right now as him being on a hot seat. There just isn't. Fan discontentment or whatever. When you have the championships, the conference championships, the national championships that he has, he knows that he's got a lot of wiggle room frankly, to work with, and he's going to use it because he is convinced he is right.
You know, you on your Twitter handle, first of all, Tony, great segment. I've kind of watched you from afar, and I just never have really contacted you, and glad we did. You say in your heading, routinely swerves out of lane. I just love that. I think I do that 8 to 10 times a day, just sitting at my desk at my office. But what does that mean for you?
Absolutely. You know what? I get told a lot. You know, when I was out on the West Coast and I was covering UCLA for 5 years, I had the last year of the Jim Mora era, and then 4 years of Chip Kelly. But if I were to opine on things outside the Pac-12, I'd be getting told, you know, you're a West Coast writer. You know, you don't know the SEC. You don't know what it's like. Now that I'm out here on the ACC, I still get told, yeah, but you're new to the ACC. You've only been out here, you know, this will be my third season covering the ACC once we move to Charlotte. And so I'm kind of like, look, man, I'm going to swerve all over the place. And I'm probably going to hit some other vehicles along the way, but I'm not staying in a lane. I just don't. I'm outspoken about a lot of things. I mean, I saw the Oklahoma State helmets today with the QR code on the back, and I was like, that is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Because how am I supposed to get my phone sitting in row 60 affixed to the QR code on the back of that helmet, you know? I mean, what am I supposed to do, rush the field afterwards and grab a helmet so I can donate $20 to some kid? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So, look, I don't hold back in my opinions, and I kick a lot of flack for it, but that's all right.
Well,
I'm pretty thick-skinned.
I struggle with that in the grocery store with the QR code that's sitting there in front of me.
I do too. I actually at one point tweeted, "What happens if you accidentally hit it twice? Does the menu for the local Hooters come up on your phone after that?"
Oh man, we will absolutely be back in touch with you, Tony. Great stuff, and good luck with what you're doing. Football Writers Association, all the various voting that you do. We do a lot of that too. We appreciate your time and have a great first week of the season.
All right, thanks guys. Be well.
Tony Siracusa, again, the managing editor, Last Word on College Football. I love it.